So I don't know. I'm not sure. I sharpen my own.
There we go.
So
I think there's someone at the farmer's market that
Good.
does some sharpening.
But
Great
they don't
solution.
do that kind of.
Then I'll give you his number again.
So for you folks online, we're discussing in the class, like, where do you get knives,
The other-
pruners sharpened?
The other place
hold
to
on.
get them sharpened, if you know the meat company on Gurley,
Oh, there we go. Yeah, love gardening.
I'm dropping
This
my
is
knives
gardening
off on the way
101.
But
That's how
they
it's
don't
done.
do the kind of
he'll
tool
do
that
anything.
does-
He'll do.
I took one in
So
one
back
time
when
and they said
Back
do
when
those kind.
Whoa.
Oh,
Back when
Different kind of.
Come on with
Focus
it.
now.
Let's get back with here. We're on pruning, or not pruning. Oh my gosh, I should not have brought that up. But I thought I'd share. Glad you enjoyed it. So today's it's on basically how to successfully. If you do a research on the net, it is going to baffle you on what's right, and what's wrong. Oh yeah, microphone. You folks online, you want to know. You want to hear this? You couldn't hear it, could you? Sorry about that. There, is that better? Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Glad you tuned in. So, okay, how to plant. And I thought I'd go over trees, some shrubs, flowers, that kind of stuff. Grapes, because they're kind of a unique thing that you're going to kind of protect here, and then containers. I'll do all that in about 50 minutes. So we'll kind of wrap it up. I've got 3 handouts for you. The 3 are, and we'll post these online for God. So every couple of years I touch it, clean it up, and it's basically every time you plant a tree or buy a tree or shrub from us, you get one of these. You can't get out of here without it. I'm going to go over this in detail. I've got the Yavapai friendly plants. This is a list of all the hardiest, toughest plants. It's 2 pages. In small things that just like to grow here. But they're not native, but they like growing here. Tough shrubs. They're borderline. They're natives in other parts of the West, and then I just have the hardcore natives, the strongest of the strong. So it's broken down into 3 sections: by tree, by shrub, by flower, by. You'll have that list. All I gave you was common name and Latin name. Just list. If you want the entire book, you go on our website, and under the Learn tab at the top, you'll see a mountain friendly low maintenance landscape. It goes into detail. So we're seeing a lot of type of scorch or heat stress on plants, but not from these. Show the top. That might help you. And then I got to John. It's been a difficult. We were sopping wet all winter. I mean, cold, wet. I mean, gooey, snowy, wet. Plants do not like that. They came out of drought and they went into this. Rest. I had a lot of my native things that were on that list. They actually didn't bloom, like rock rose. I mean, that's a bulletproof plant, but it went from drought to super wet to now it's having to adapt. This is a chance. Monsoony. Growing, but they're struggling to get going again, and you're seeing that in a lot of plants. They didn't die, but they're not really growing. What happened? That's why it happened. You have an option by chair. Mackenzie, could you get me my chair? I know you're running everywhere. Sorry about that. So I have my lovely assistant, also called daughter, helping me out. So, and then I'll explain where all the sequins and stuff on. You should see the shoes online. I wish you could see them. Thank you. So all-purpose plant folks, we love our online folks, but we prefer our VIP students, virtual in person. So come on down and see us at This is all-purpose plant. Puts up more foliage, more flowers, the top growth. This is really for top growth. What I've done with a few of my things, my rock rose, I give them two things. The all-purpose food and its last elements, you end up with humic acid. What this does, it attracts worms, mycorrhizal colonies, all the benefit things that activate soil. It activates the soil. It's a soil activator, and so it makes the roots so they start rooting. So it encourages the bottom growth, whereas most of your fertilizers, they really encourage top growth. If you use it I apologize to last week's class. I got out a little late. I went to the farms. I've been touring farms all week. So I've been in greenhouses, looking at houseplant operations, and I just lost track of time. So you didn't get it until yesterday, sorry. So this one I'll try to get out today or tomorrow, so I'll be a little bit better. These three, put your email down if you want those, they'll be to you. If you're part of our garden club already, it's not going to all 11,000 garden club members, only to you. Just the students here, and then you folks online, we put a link down to the side. Go ahead, you can download it there. And if you would, take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff they tell you to do. It does actually help small companies. Okay, Hi, my name's Ken. I own the garden center. Actually, I've owned the garden center 100%, my wife and I, since 2002. Came back into the family business back in 1992, so 31 years. Is that right? 31 years. I was a marketing director for banks. Equifax, you know them credit reports? That's what I did. Marketing director for Equifax. I got bored with the whole corporate thing, and I missed my hometown. This is where I grew up. Went to school here, Yavapai College, class of '83. Go Badgers, all that kind of ASU. I missed my hometown. And so we moved back back in the 90s. And so we've been learning how to grow and plant things for decades. Our family goes back to 1962. Actually, Harold Waters, my father-in-law, he was landscaping back in the 50s. And so we've seen the place grow. And I can tell you right off the bat that you folks in Prescott Valley, you think you're so special. You're the same as all the rest of us. You're not lower, you're not higher, you're just more clay. You folks in Port Holden, that's the hardest growing. Heavy clay. All that cold air spills out on top of you, and then it's windy. You got gophers everywhere. Squirrels, all that kind of stuff. So we're all the same zone. The technique is the same for all of us. You're tuned in from Camp Verde, Cottonwood. You poor folks in Jerome, all 20 of you. Up on that hillside, you just have rocks. So we'll go over some of that. But we're all the same here, okay? So we're zone 7. That means we need plants that can go down to about 10 degrees, okay, or lower. So we can grow plants here in zone 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 7 and below, you can grow those plants, no problem. Zone 8, you folks over in the Verde Valley, you're zone 7B, 8, but that cold air settles in next to that river, so you get cold, serious cold. And so really, you're zone 7. I flirt with some 8 zones in my yard. That means plants can go up to about 15 degrees or so without dying. It's really the amount of antifreeze the plants have inside of them to keep them from freezing in midwinter. Okay. So with that being said, when you read the tags, it'll tell you, oh, this is a zone 6. You're good. Zone 4, you're good. Lilacs are zone 4. You're good. So zone 7 is most of the plants. So if you're more like the Midwest, you folks in the Midwest, you're in heaven because we can grow all of your plants plus a whole lot more because we're just a slight bit warmer. And so with that being said, what we don't have is dirt. We don't have soil. You're gonna have to make your own soil. So the little bit of topsoil you had in your yard, the contractor scraped that off, push it to the side, put your footers, foundations, driveways. Literally, some of you in the newer home areas, you have not one living thing left in your soil. You are gardening in dead dirt, literally. You won't find one worm, there's nothing. Except maybe the contractor buried some bricks or something in your front yard. You'll see that, I have that in my yard. And so you'll have to probably reinvigorate or add some organics back into your soils to enliven the dirt. And so it's impractical to do it for the entire yard. It's just the volume it would take. It's just not realistic. But you could do it by planting hole very easily. So let's kind of go over that. Let's go over this one. Let's go over the number 1 seller, this one. Number 1 selling shrub, right here. Red-tipped photinia. The new growth is red, gets up to about 12 by 12 by 12. This is a monster. Don't put it next to your house or your driveway, or you'll be fighting it for the rest of your tenure at that property. This is something to be out by the property line, out there, privacy screens, windbreaks. That's where you plant this because it's just too aggressive. As a short hedge, not worth the energy. As a really big hedge, yeah, you could probably prune it a couple times a year, 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times a year, maybe keep it under control. So this is one that you plant it out there, okay? It's going to adapt pretty well here. Right now we're seeing a little bit of this. I brought it because this is an example of leaf scorch. It's been 100 or so, and the plants are literally, no matter how much we water them, they're perspiring faster than the roots can take up the moisture loss. This is generally a very tough plant. Now it looks like this is from old damage. Looks like new growth is now coming out, so it's recovered. So we put our care to it. So that's the new growth, red, will come out just to be this nice green plant. When you're planting the hole for this, only dig the hole as deep as the bucket. Don't go down to China. There's nothing down there for the roots to go after. Just more caliche, more clay, rock. There's just nothing down there. The roots are going to grow sideways. They're going to go out just underneath the surface looking for moisture and nutrients. Because there's just there's nothing alive in your soil. There's nothing down there for them to go after. So just the same depth, but 3 times as wide. Saucer shaped. That's the size of the hole, okay? So the dirt that you dig out of that, screen it. Some of you you're gonna hit a rock and it's all just one boulder. You got nothing left. You have to add some more soil back in there to get enough filler in there. Most of us are going to have some smaller rocks. Anything bigger than a golf ball, throw that away. It just heats up in summer and bakes the roots of your plants. So there's too big a particle to hold water molecules. It just doesn't, there's nothing of value to the plant there. Screen it down tighter. Any roots, old weeds, anything that's kind of chunky, you just go, I wonder if that should be there. No, it should not. Get it out of there. What's left over when you get done with that process, you're going to add some mulch, some compost, this kind of stuff. This is what's going to bring the worms. This is what's going to reactivate. This is what's going to attract the good stuff back into your soil. So it's also going to keep that clay soil. You folks out that 69 corridor, oh, it's so rough out there. Out by Hills Ranch, all the way out to Dewey, Cordes Junction. It is nothing but clay and caliche layers. Caliche is like this gray, it's basically concrete that runs through the soil. And so it actually has a chalky kind of look to it. It's really bad for your plants. And so sometimes you'll dig a hole out there and then you'll fill it up with water and it just doesn't drain. You have bathtub basically. What's happened is you got a layer of caliche underneath that somewhere, and the water goes down to that and then stops, and it doesn't percolate, doesn't drain through that. If we see that, we'll actually dig a chimney or a portion of that hole. We'll just dig down. Once we fracture or break that layer, that next soil band, whether it's caliche or whatever, it'll start to drain just like that. You got to be able to drain. The soil has to drain. I'll give you a couple other techniques here in just a minute. So the soil you have left, you're going to add about 25% mulch to your native soil, okay? Or about 1 shovel to about 3 shovels of soil. That helps you. I've cheated that up to about 50-50. If you get a lot of rocks or chunk or something happens in there, I'll go up to 50-50, but not beyond. It gets too soil. It stays, it's too gooey. And so you're better off getting some topsoil, something to fill. There's some filler soils we can add to it. So topsoil is that's made for filling in beds to help you with drainage, filler, raising up raised beds, that kind of stuff. But 50-50, that's usually, or about 25%, okay? Blend that all together. Don't layer it. I've seen a lot of rookie moves where they put some mulch down, then they throw some native soil, then they throw some mulch. Don't do that. Roots don't like change. They don't want to go through different kinds of soils. They want consistency. So we're trying to get them out of this rich soil they've known all their lives, transition into a semi-rich soil, and then eventually they got to get into the native junk that's out there. They have to adapt. They can't adapt. You need a different plant. So we're trying to get them to do that. That will do it, okay? Blend that together, backfill all around the roots, pack it in tight. I mean, really, no air pockets allowed. Just really pack it in. When you're all done, you should be at soil level. So this root, I'm exposed in here. So this root, the soil you see up here, this should remain exposed to the air. I feel like I'm getting my sequins all dirty. I feel awkward. I don't know. It seems like I shouldn't do this in this shirt. I'll explain what this is all about in a second. But this should be exposed. I see a rookie mistake where they bury it too many times, or we're Americans. We're generous people. We like to give 40 more cents and supersize it, make it better, more. Don't bury it. Deeper is not better. This should breathe. The roots need to breathe. The top area gives off oxygen. The bottom, the roots need oxygen. And so if we bury it with a bunch of dirt or it doesn't drain, it just stays real wet, the roots can literally drown if you're not careful. Okay? So really, really critical, a technique out in Prescott Valley, at least in our first house was in Prescott Valley. And so out right across from Coyote Springs, that backside, back then, the roads were still dirt. They still called it Jackass Flats. There's reference to it now, but Prescott Valley's all grown up. And they're like a real city. I mean, I'm proud. So they've got it going on. Back then, they didn't. And so it was heavy, heavy clay. I was trying to plant at soil level, and I was killing stuff. And heavy caliche clay soil just was rough, especially on evergreens. Evergreens are really sensitive to overwatering. Any kind of evergreen. Foliage, we call this a leafy evergreen, or conifers, like needled evergreens. They're really sensitive to overwatering. If the roots stay too wet too long, they'll die. They get yellow, drop their leaves, they stop blooming, all kinds of things happen. With that being said, what I did is I started to raise a portion of the root. I'd leave 2 or 3 inches of root out of the ground, and then slightly feather the soil off of that. So from a distance, you couldn't tell it was just a couple inches out of the ground. But up close, I put my drip irrigation on top of that mound. It was a game changer. I mean, the mortality rate dropped dramatically. It just ended that. So what happened was we get a couple wet cycles here. Right now, we're into one of those wet cycles, so it's monsoon season. So we get quite a few. It's not unusual for us to get 1 or 2 major rain events per week. Very common now through September, really. And then March is another wet season. Only usually it's wet, like heavy snow that stays on the ground and just gets real gooey. It's a gooey kind of wet. So there's a definite bump in amount of moisture, but plants are affected by those. If that happens, it guarantees at least that much of the roots can breathe. No matter how much moisture you get, that it can breathe. It's kind of like you keeping your nose up out of a pool. You can go a long time. As long as your nose stays up out of the water, you can adjust. Your plants can do the same thing. Really? Question already over something like that.
Basic question. Do you plant in the bucket or you take the plant out of the bucket?
Great idea. So do we plant it in the bucket, or can we? Or should we take it out of the bucket? Take it out of the bucket. Unless it's a short term, this is my rental, I want to take these with me. Then you might keep it in the bucket. But otherwise, take it out. I have seen folks slice the bottom to get them to root in that way, but you're better off getting the soil around there because you get more moisture, the soil around the plant is like a huge sponge. It holds the moisture, allows the plant to get access to the food, the water. The more of it you can give them, the better, the less problematic you're going to have, watering, that kind of stuff. So anyway, take it out of the bucket. Good question. The other one that comes up often is, let's see if this is a good example. I guess if I get one, maybe this grape. See this. So this is a great example. So the question often comes up, what should I do to the roots before I do that? Okay, let's just cover that. So this one's about perfect. So what you don't want is roots doing this. Sometimes you pull out an old bucket, we call those carryovers. If they couldn't sell it last year, they sell it cheap this year, and you try to pick it up for a song. And so they're usually cheaper sometimes because they couldn't sell them before. So they mark them down so you can take them. Well, they're left over, and so the roots start doing this. And once roots start doing that, it's very difficult to get them unprogrammed. They just seem to always do this. You'll pull out a plant that's 5 years old, It's grown in that whole area, and all you see is the roots did this more and more and more, even though they root pruned it. But if you do see that, take some pruners or something, store it, razor blades. At Waters Garden Center, you won't find that. We don't carry carryover. We don't sell. We want it to be this is just perfect. You'll see a little bit of matting sometimes at the bottom. You see that, what I would do here is just massage a little bit the side roots, and then these are the feeder roots. These are the new roots coming out. We've now massaged those, so now they're pointing out, and they will start doing this. But that's about all I would massage that, and then I would plant it right in the ground. If you do your homework online, be careful, because they'll tell you to beat up until there's no soil left, all kinds of crazy stuff. That's all I would do. So just lightly rough it up, and that's like the perfect root ball to put in the ground. I brought this grape. I chose this one exactly, because if I were planting a grape, this would be the perfect grape I would want to plant. And grapes are unique. They're one of the only plants you can plant deep for a deeper root zone. So this one, I look for a grape that's got a longer stem to it, trunk or vine, so I could plant this deep. It's the only plant. Don't do that to your berries, your blueberries, brambles, lilacs, or they will die. Grapes, they're one of the few plants that actually start rooting out from their stem. So now you get a deeper, more robust root ball, which means you're going to have better top growth, bigger grapes sooner. So it's one of the few things. So that's the only reason I brought this particular grape, just to share that kind of insider tip. If you're planting grapes, look for a tall vine. Grapes are looking really good this year. Lots of grapes. My peaches, finally. People have been complaining for 6 weeks. My peaches are small. Why? My peaches are small. Why? We had like 2 rains. Peaches are now this big, and they're starting to color up. All it took was a couple rain, that little bit of pressure off the heat, and they just bulked right out. They were waiting until the season was just right, until the weather turned, and they bulked up. So it's going to be a good peach year too. Good, really good. Plums, really good. Let's go over that while. I'll show you while you're planting, just while we're putting the soil back. So I brought this tree. It's an apple tree, well, obviously, but I brought this because most of our plants that we sell here are grafted. The reason they're grafted, that is, we took a stronger rootstock. So we're trying to find rootstock that can adapt better to clay soil. So we're taking a clay soil for our area, rootstock for our area, and then we graft the type of plant that we want onto that root, so we get a hardier plant. So we're noted as a place where our plants live. Well, that's why we're growing for this area the right plants on the right roots. So they all have a graft. Almost every plant we saw has a graft. Then we graft this, looks like a Granny Smith or something, whatever apple that is, whatever it is. We get an exact clone or exact perfect plant. We're not starting plants by seed. We're starting that by cuttings grafting them onto a rootstock. So we get an exact copy of the perfect plant we found somewhere else. You take a cutting off that, put it on there, grow it for 5 or 6 years. Ta-da! Here's the danger. Don't ever let soil touch this graft. Keep it exposed to the air, or you'll get crown rot just like that. Or there's different kinds of bacteria that focus on just eating that. And they're all soil borne. So leave this exposed. Don't let dirt or mulch come up over that. So just something I've seen folks make a mistake, kind of newbies planting trees. That's a common mistake. It's just for my friends, don't do that. You'll have more success. That's the only reason I brought this apple. Example, peaches, apricots, maples, aspens. They're all the same. Don't let soil touch, except for grapes. Grapes like that. Like, don't ask me why. And tomatoes. Tomatoes love being planted deep. Those are the only 2 things that we sell in the nursery that are like that. Everything else, leave it exposed. Okay, we ended up with, let's take this Poketia. It's one of the #1 selling commercial, sunny, I just need abusive plant. I want to abuse the plant. It looks good from April through October and blooms like crazy that deer don't eat, hell ain't no bother potentia. So this is a cute little shrub, just knee-high, ball-shaped, easy to care for. If you have a lot of rental properties, that kind of stuff, your tenants cannot kill this. It's one of those kind of plants, okay? It's one of those. If you're next to the forest, you just have nothing but deer and javelina roaming by. They're not going to bother this. It doesn't taste good to them. So this loves full sun. If you're up on the ridge lines, it'll take the wind, the windiest of view lots, it'll take that. So you backfill around this. When you get all done, I would sprinkle a handful of this around the root ball. Again, remember, there's nothing valuable in your soil. There's no reason for the roots to go out. There's not one thing out there for them to go for. So you're encouraging them to do that. And by adding some nutrients, they're going to go after that. This is an organic fertilizer, so it's going to stimulate. So I would say stay away from chemical fertilizers when you're first putting plants in. Worms don't like chemicals, obviously. You stick your hand in a bag of chemical fertilizer, it'll sting your hand, much less everything else in the soil. So use organics. This is cottonseed meal and bird guano and others. I put fairy dust in this, all kinds of stuff. So it's good stuff. And then the other benefit with organics, every time water releases or touches that, it releases a little food over a very long period of time because organics break down slower. So the plants are you get more growth. So anyway, just a handful of this around there. Some folks will go, do I put it in the ground? Do I mix this in with my soil mulch? Do I put it on top? It doesn't matter. Whatever you want. You true gardeners, you like to make work out of this. You are required to add it in before and mix it up and blend it because it's more work. It's an extra step, and then you backfill. Me, I just chuck it on the ground. It's all good. I like to see it too. I like to see where it's at. So I think either way, it doesn't matter. Okay. And then I'll water it in at the very end with Root and Go. Root and Grow this is a compost tea we make. So when you open it up, it looks like molasses. It kind of looks like fish emulsion without all the nasty smell. It's that kind of stuff. So anyway, we brew up some organics and we make this 3 tablespoons in a gallon of water. And then you're going to mix that in. It's going to stimulate. Your plants are going to freak out when you put this thing in the ground. It's like having open heart surgery and heart surgery all at the same time. This is its only home, and now you're putting it in your ground, it's not going to be happy. This helps it to stabilize. And so you'll use this every couple of weeks until you see the plant stabilize, going, oh, it's growing. I am a gardener. Oh, look what I've done. I've grown this thing. Then it doesn't need this anymore because it's obviously starting to root out and it's adapted okay. If plants are really stressed out, this is what you give it. So it's like magic juice. They really like it. Okay. So, but not a permanent. Your long-term solution is the all-purpose food. This is your transplant shock. Your grandparents called it B1. So what we found with B1 is there's no difference between B1 and water. They both act the same, so it doesn't really work. Don't use B1 anymore. It's still sold. Use a compost tea. This is going to make a difference. Okay. Okay, and that's it. That's how you plant. Trees and shrubs. Trees, mainly trees, especially evergreens. You should stake them. Okay. So with this, just pull this apple back out again. So let's just show it for folks online. Put that back here. So take this stake off. Many times we put a stake on the side of the tree. It's mainly for shipping, so we don't damage or break or scar the trunk. But it's not made for you to plant with. Take this stake off. If we were to keep this on there, what would happen is it'd be like putting your arm in a cast for 2 years. How strong would your muscles be once the cast comes off? You couldn't hardly hold your arm up. Same with the trunk. If they need to move, if you kept it real stiff like this, you have a brittle tree and it's more prone to snap off and the wind, and we do have wind here, don't we?
No.
We definitely have wind. So what you do is you take a stake on either side while the hole is usually, while the soil is soft, you'll take a hole on either side, try to get it as far down as you can into the subsurface, and then tie it off once, maybe twice for a tall tree. We want it to move. We just don't want it leaning. So what will happen is in the spring, we get this prevailing southwest wind. It's like nonstop, morning, noon, night, all the time, 24/7 for about 3 months, or today.
Yeah.
And so it's just as the leaves are starting to come out. This is like a huge parachute. It finally catches the wind, so it'll start to lean to that northeast. You walk through your neighborhood, you'll see a bunch of trees that weren't staked when they were young. They're all leaning to the northeast. If you take a fruit tree, it'll load up with fruit the next spring, and it will add 200 pounds of fruit. It'll literally fall out of the ground because there's just not enough roots. Keep it up straight. Usually stakes are only needed for 1 year, 2 at most. So some of you, your trees were put in like 5 years ago. The trees are now holding up the stakes. You don't need those anymore. You can cut those off, break them off. But I tell folks if they're really nervous, I'm not sure, just cut the tie in between the stakes and the tree. See if it holds up before you break those off. Because you can always retie it back if you need, but I'll almost guarantee you're not going to need those stakes anymore. So we keep stakes on way too long here, just because we forget about them. We don't see them anymore. That's how you stake. The other one is stay away from small. This is just school hard knocks, okay? Small stakes like small redwood or small green, those green stakes. In a windy area, they wiggle out of the ground. They just kind of work their way out. They're just ineffective. Within a month, they'll be out of the ground. Use lodge poles. Like I brought this example. Give me just a second. So we make stake kits. These are like $20. Lodge poles, the reason we use lodge poles, it seems like they're overkill, but they don't wiggle out of the ground. That's the reason. So they're harder to get in the ground, but it's really the size, the width, the diameter is what's actually keeping them from wiggling on the ground. So we put a V-strap on there. V-strap just goes around it without cutting it. So you tie your wire or whatever onto these. You can buy all the parts separately, but we're just trying to make it easy for you when you're buying a tree. Okay, so it's stake kits. Use lodge poles. And let me go over while stakes. Make sure you're also staking, but even more so, your evergreens, spruce and pine, junipers, cypress, cedars, firs. You should be staking those, and even the big one. And here's the reason why. What happens is, like a big spruce, I've got this beautiful spruce tree. Let me put this stake kit down. I'll show this online. Put this down. I've just seen this so many times, and I want you to do it right. So this tree probably weighs, 100 pounds. It's probably not going to fall over by itself. It'll take the wind. It's big enough. The roots are pretty substantial. It's got some weight to it. But what happens when our wet cycles, now and March? What happens is you plant it now and it's fine. It roots. You took all your roots, started to go out. You put another 1.5 foot, 2 foot of roots out there. But they're fine feeder roots. They're real fine. They're tender, light roots. Then March comes. You get an 8-inch snow. It loads up, and this thing is made to hold snow and stay upright. Be beautiful. But it holds up, and if it's not fully rooted, it will literally just fall over. Doesn't kill the tree. But all of a sudden, you have to start all over again with the roots. You have to prop it back up, root it out again, and start over. If you just had stakes on there for 1 year, until those roots get established, this thing will stay up even in the strongest, the heaviest of snows. So I encourage folks, even on the biggest spruce trees, it's counterintuitive. You think they'd stay up by themselves. It's that snow of March seems to get them to fall over. So that'll just save you some headache. Yeah.
If you have a tree that's already, sorry.
Yeah, it's already leaning. So if you got a tree that's already leaning, It's almost, once it puts that ring of growth on there, they're really tough to get back. So I've actually had them on bumpers with chains to see how far I could go. The truck couldn't move it because the trees are really strong. Once they start putting a ring or two of wood on there, they're really strong. And so the secret is don't let them lean. I guess you could prune and do some things, try it, see what happens. Sometimes you can get some leverage on it, but pretty much it's almost, I would encourage you to cut it down and buy a new one from Waters.
It was there already
Yeah.
and it was buried and
Yeah.
I took the stuff around it.
Sometimes you
revealed it.
enjoy the plants you have, you accessorize and you remodel the way to mitigate some of that. But there's another question back here. We're okay?
Yeah, how far away from the tree do you put these big stakes?
Yeah, usually I'll try to put it just outside the root ball. The other question comes in, do I do it sideways? Do I put them out like this? Do I go this way? Do I go north, south, east, west? I've found over the years it makes zero difference. Usually I'll go straight up and down because it just looks less like Dr. Seuss. I don't know. It's, for me, I'm very parallel. I like perpendicular ground. It looks better. It doesn't matter. And then north, south, east, or west. If the wind's coming from the southwest, shouldn't I put one there, one in the north? It doesn't matter. 2 compensates for it. 3 is overkill. You just don't need 3 stakes. It's too much. A few engineers, the nurses, you know, your accountants, you're okay to put 3 stakes down. It's overkill. You need to make sure. But the rest of us, you just a little energy goes a long ways to keep them going. Okay, so a great question. All right, let's come back to it. Let's keep this. Where else is it going? I got trees. Keep them exposed. Give them some air, especially if you have clay soil. Let's touch on this. You dig your hole. Let's say you're up Timber Ridge, Hazley, some of those areas. There you get rock shelves up there. You think you have some dirt, and there's this rock, huge boulder underneath it. You're going, I'm not sure if it drains or not. If you're not sure if it drains, so if it's a new part of the garden for you, new part of the yard, test it. So dig your hole, fill it with water in the morning, and at the end of the day, if water's still sitting there, don't plant. You'll have to do some more work to it because it's just a bathtub. It's still holding too much water. So you need to dig a chimney. Remember I said dig a piece up until you see the next, you'll see on the road cut, you'll see different kinds of soils going up, down that soil cut. Well, you need to get to the next soil texture, and all of a sudden that hole will start draining. It's a game changer. But if it's still holding water at the end of the day, I mean, cattails maybe, grow mint. Mint grows everywhere, so you grow that, but not a lilac, not this desert willow. This is a native. It's going to drown if you're not careful. So can you see it?
Yeah, there you go.
Hey there, we're trying to keep you involved, it's a big stage. You should see the stage at Yale College. I had my first dress rehearsal there. Again, I'll explain what this is. So I'm dancing for the stars. They just got the dimensions of the stage. It's 50 foot wide by 35 foot deep. That's the same size as this half of the greenhouse. That's the size of the stage. So we're practicing. I clear out the greenhouse. We practice here going, okay, we need our marks. Make sure it's big enough. The show's big enough. So it's huge. Anyway, why did I go there? Forget. Anyway, we're trying to keep you all part of the stage.
Don't put it in water.
Desert willow. So the desert willow you've seen Dewey, Skull Valley over that way towards Hillside, Kirkland, those areas, you've seen plants about 18 feet tall, usually multi-stemmed, and they're all in bloom like this. Hummingbirds just love this plant. Butterflies love this plant. So the native one tends to put on a bean spike, bean pod. So it blooms once, puts a bean, and then tries to replicate itself. I'm going to throw seed everywhere. We've figured out how to breed that seed out of there. So it no longer puts a seed or far fewer seeds. So now it blooms. It goes, oh, I don't have to spend all that energy on seed. I think I'll just bloom again. So this is called burgundy. There's still 3 or 4 varieties of hybrid. We just cross-pollinated different kinds of plants. Once we find the perfect desert willow, And we start taking cuttings from that perfect one, start grafting, we start replicating that. So it takes years to get production up there, but this is by far a better type of desert willow, if you get a native, than others. It comes in a couple different colors. This one would be really sensitive to over water. Again, it's a native. But to make sure we amend that soil, dig the roots wide, the hole wide, make sure the hole drains, or that plant will drown and get yellow leaves, start dropping. You're going, oh, I think it's overwatered. Then you'll double down on the death and decay, water it even more, and then we got a dead plant about 6 to 8 weeks down the road. We're all warranted. Yeah, you got it covered, but still, you did all that work. We want it to be successful, not struggle. Okay? All right. With that being said, let's go over cactus. Manzanita, yuccas. Careful, look at it. You bit the apple tree. These guys like to bite you. In fact, I'm working on an article right now, how to plant prickly pear. Just what are the varieties, how to get them going, how to take them out. It's right now 5,000 words. I get down to like 800, so I got to really thin it. It's got too much information.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
5
it's
pages long.
Too much, 5 pages long. Yeah, it's too much. So I'm trying. So that'll be out about 3 or 4 weeks. See what happens. This guy, I would say it's critical for your native-y kinds of things. Agaves, which is century plant. You're seeing them bloom right now, that huge flower stalk. They get like 10 or 12 feet tall. And then once it's done blooming, the mother plant dies. And then the baby pups start to come out around it. So that's called a century plant. The rumor is it blooms once every century or 100 years. Not really. If it's in a place where it's happy, it's once every 20 years or so. But it's a long bloom cycle. So if you're doing those, for the love of gardening, don't put them on your drip system. Water by hand. They're really tough. When I send you that Yavapai friendly plant list, the ones that say super tough, don't put those on your drip system. Water them by hand, and once they get established, they can go all by themselves. They don't need more help from you. They're truly, truly adaptive. We just have to get the roots from here out in the surrounding area. Once they're out there, they're good to go by themselves. Okay. Cactus. This one is kind of a difficult one. I thought I'd share with you just kind of how to handle it, how to get it out there. Well, first of all, have your landscaper do it for you. That takes all the guesswork out. But if you got to do it by yourself, usually I'm going to cut the pot off. I'm not going to try to handle it out. I'll just take my pruners or scissors, a razor blade. Anything will cut this pot off. I'll use my soil. I'll dig this wide hole. I'm going to mend it. Usually with cacti and yuccas, agaves, I'll get a bag of cactus mix. There's a special soil just for these guys. It's basically the mulch with lots of pumice, lots of perlite, those white particles you see in potting soil sometimes. It's a lot of that, which adds air. Just make sure it has a lot of air. Some folks will say add a lot of sand. What I find is, for you folks out in the clay areas, clay plus sand, that's actually how you make cement. So it doesn't really help you with drainage and stuff. It almost bakes and makes a cake kind of thing. You're better off adding more organics. That's what's going to help the drainage. Okay? I'll get the hole dug. I'll get all my soil ready. I'll cut this off and almost just pick it up by the roots and gently settle it down. Leather gloves are your friend.
Tongs.
Yeah,
I use
tongs
tongs.
for smaller ones.
Yes.
Yeah. Also newspaper for like your barrels and stuff. You take some newspaper. That they don't like to go through paper as easily. Some folks will use towels, but I find newspaper does better than that. But basically, don't touch it. Just kind of lift it up with roots, settle it down, get it positioned the way you want it so it looks best, and then backfill. Okay. And that's it. Water it in by hand. Don't put on the drip. I've killed more manzanita in my backyard. In fact, I figured out I can't grow it in the backyard because I'm on a north slope. I'm overlooking the Dells. Beautiful vistas, classic view lot. But the backyard is heavy clay and it's north facing, so it stays wet a long time. And so I tend to kill them off in the winter mainly. So they rot out on me in the winter. They just don't come back. So I shifted over to junipers and cotoneaster, and they're happy as can be. So they adapt to that. So you'll find types of soil in your yard are a little different, and they'll accept certain plants better than others. So cactus and gabies like it back there, though. They grow almost anywhere. This one will tend to grow and mound on you. It gets only this big, but it gets kind of moundy. So you never get just one. You're going to get pop several of them. Once it gets up to size, you don't want it to get any bigger. All you do is you take your pruner, just take the pads off. Don't let it grow anymore. Take the pads and spread them over there. Give them to neighbors. You just plant the pad, it'll start to grow. So, but once it gets to size, a lot of folks let them go too much because they're afraid to deal with them. And so just cut the pad off. Pruners, scissors, anything. They're actually tougher than you think because they get a real fibrous inside to them. So pruners or loppers or something. I like the short-handled loppers. Use those a lot because they're easy to manipulate and they're longer. So I can cut them and then I pick them up and I throw them away basically once they're this size. Okay. Don't put them where the grandkids are wrestling. Let's see, by agaves the same way. Agaves have this beautiful pad with this weapon on the end, spike. I just put those out there where they're not going to run into them. Or you,
Or
same
dogs.
thing. Or dogs, yeah. Yeah. That's how you deal with cacti. What else? I'm going to make sure I cover it. I got grapes. Wanted to go over this what Lisa mentioned. We got steaks. Oh, we mentioned this one. Just because it's such an unusual plant. We just got these in. This is a box elder, which it grows wild here. Box elder grows up and down the creeks and that kind of stuff. It's a native. Related to maples. I think it actually is a neighbor family. This is called pink flamingo box elder because a new growth comes out with this pinky color to it. It is magnificent. The fall color is this color too. It's magnificent. There's very few white plants or variegated plants that grow here, leafy ones that don't scorch in the sun. This one loves our sun, adapts really well. It takes our clay soil, and once it gets established, it can pretty much go on its own. So anyway, it gets about, got a really mature one, maybe not even 20 feet tall. Maybe 20 feet tall is optimistic, and base shaped like this, kind of comes over the trunk, then it kind of goes out like this. So kind of crabapple size. If you're from the Midwest, crab apples are the same kind of size and shape, but just pretty unusual, funky. And for gardeners, I mean, you're here taking a how do I plant class. That's pretty weird. Okay, that says something about it. That's a gardener. I want to make sure I do it right. I want success, faster growth. You would like this plant. Okay. Pink box elder. All box elders do well. We sold 2 or 3 here. We're trying to get new varieties because they adapt so well. So we're trying to introduce new varieties that are just funky. They have less bug issues. Yeah.
So west facing, okay?
Oh, for the box elder? Oh, full sun. The more sun, the better. Absolutely. West facing. I'd say give it at least 6 hours of sun or more. And give it wind. Kick dirt at it. Curse at it. Take a blow dryer. It's going to like all those things. Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, it's a really good plant. If you're on a hillside, you folk, I don't know how you grow stuff up there because it's so windy all the time. You get the brunt of every storm. This is going to adapt pretty well. But again, I would stake it, make sure it grows up straight. And once the trunk is straight, you can prune it to keep it full and shapely.
You should go over Gopher Shields really quick,
Yeah, go for sure. We should.
just for
For all
here.
the Valley folks. So we raised our family. Mackenzie, this is my daughter, Mackenzie. So she's training to take over the business. We grew our family up on a farm in Skull Valley. Skull Valley is just beautiful, right on Kirkland Creek. It's beautiful, 10 acres, lots of greenhouses, elk roaming, bear, lions, tigers. I mean, they're all out there. It's wild. It's ranch country. Gophers were really bad. I mean, they were ferocious. And so we have a thing called Gopher Shield. If you're planting a new plant, you're in that, it seems like that valley. So Skull Valley up to Paulden, Chino Valley, that backside of Prescott Valley, Coyote Springs, gophers. You just have gophers, lots and lots of gophers. We don't have moles here. It's a bigger animal. We have pocket gophers. We used to call them pocket gophers. They got a flap of skin underneath their chin, and they dig dirt up, put it in this pocket. They take it up to a hole, and they chuck it out.
Oh, that's crazy.
So you'll see these mounds in the yard where it's just an exit tunnel. So they're burrowing out their homes, and they're not working the entire nest or run all the time. They're taking this section of the 3 or 4 nests around underground, like little bird nests. Go ahead, ask me how I know this. I am obsessive compulsive. I was out in the orchard once, or out in the pasture. Doggone it, I'm going to find this doggone gopher. He'd been thwarting me for like a week. Don't do that to me. I went all marine on him. I dug up every single run. When I got done, it was about a 10 by 10 area. Had 3 nests. And I think they're working this part for a while, and they come back over here. They work this part for a while, and they're looking for worms and grubs and roots and things they're looking for underground. And so if you get thwarted by, I couldn't get them over here, it's because they moved over to there. And there's colonies of them. You never have just one. You have like one fence line. I caught over 50 gophers in one fence line. So from me to the barn, it was a long run. So it's me to the barn. It's maybe, I don't know, 100 yards, not even that. They were using the fences as protection to keep the hawks and the blue herons and the things from getting them. They were using that barbed wire to protect them. So they mounted up there. 50, caught over 50 in this fence line. If you can, they can be bad. So this is for you folks. And make a gopher shield. This is a 15-gallon. And the way this works, this side. So it's stainless steel, and it's a mesh that is smaller than they need in the pups. The small ones can go through. And then as the roots grow, it can expand some. But it's stainless steel, so it's not going to rust. Chicken wire will rust. Eventually, they can get through it. This one, they can't. So if you've got a new planting, this is well worth the energy. Just put this in the ground, and then you put your plant inside this, and it's chain mail for roots. You'll keep them off. Especially important for fruit trees, fast growing like cottonwoods. They seem to eat just about everything. So anyway, gophers, if you got them, deal with them. Don't assume if your neighbors have them, you're going to have them, just a matter of time. They travel. What happens in the spring, mama pushes the pups out. They come above ground at night and they run, and they look for brand new planting areas where the ground is soft, easy to dig. And all of a sudden you've had no brand new trees, been there for a month, no gopher problems. All of a sudden you have a gopher right there. That's usually a baby that's going out. They run looking for easy. They're looking for easy. So something to watch. We don't have moles, just have gophers. Gopher shields. These are like under $20, maybe less than that. They're very affordable. All right. I guess I should cover gopher moles since you brought it up for me. Thank you, Nancy.
Sure.
You do have Mole Max. This is an organic repellent for gophers. It's pretty effective, but it's not permanent. It's going to last for about 6 months. And that's mainly castor bean oils, what the main ingredient is. So they get on their fur. I don't know if it gives them runs or they preen themselves. They don't like it, but it irritates them, so they stay over there. Just keep irritating them until they get over to your neighbors, and then don't let them come back. So I've used this as a barrier, so my neighbors, I'll take care of gophers, they won't. I'll kill them in my yard. It's an underground rat. I'm like rats. They deserve to die. So I'm going to take you and your family and everyone else, and then I'll put this as a barrier around the edge of my property, just to keep them out, keep the neighbors out over there. So it's pretty effective. Then eventually I just get tired of doing that, and I offer to help you. If you're my neighbor, I'll come over and kill your gophers for you. And so the way you go. Yep. Bring up the pot for a reason. Yep.
Let's do this another hour. Let's go. I'm ready.
Is there any, we're getting close.
Bad do's or don'ts on that.
No. So it's how to plant. So I brought a pot. The only reason I brought a pot was make sure it's got a drainage hole, whatever you're using. We're using a lot of troughs, all kinds. You can plant in anything. I've seen someone plant in a toilet. Please don't do that if you're my neighbor, but I've seen it. I've literally seen it. So make sure it's got drainage. So it doesn't matter the size, just as long as water can get out, you're good, okay? Use a material that can go through the freeze and thaw cycles. So up here, this is for you Phoenix, Palm Springs, Southern Cal folks. You're used to that Mexican clay, that terracotta, that red clay. It just flakes and breaks in the winter. You get one season, maybe two at most, then it cracks. So as the water gets in the clay and it freezes and expands, it just breaks it apart. So all of our pots are they're high fire dense clay. So you're going to go through the winter far, far better. And then when you're planting this, just use straight potting soil as much as you can. This is where I get a lot of folks asking, you'll get all kinds of, well, I've seen the bottoms filled with styrofoam peanuts, Coke cans, water bottles. Don't do that. You want as much soil as you can. The more soil, the longer that plant will live in that pot. I've got some trees that are years old. I mean, I don't even know how old they are. They've been in so long because they had enough soil. Keep going. If you reduce that soil to reduce weight, it will reduce weight, but your plant's not going to be as healthy. It's hard to keep water. Better to buy a caster to roll it around and max out the soil. And then the other one I find a lot of rookies make, they don't buy enough potting soil. So potting soil is made for pots. This is our grower's mix. This is what our plants are started in. So it looks like white. It's got white. It's got peat moss. It's got all this. This is what the recipe is. It's all organic. This is made to put right in there and plant directly in it. If you did that for, let's say, new mint, new tomatoes, new flowers, it's the same soil that they're grown in. They're going to adapt instantly to that, like just right away. Because again, plants don't like different soil; they like the same. So as close as you can match in your pots to the soil you see from the garden center, the better off you are, because you have no transplant shock.
Same fertilizing cycle.
Same fertilizing. Their containers can vary a little bit. We do make a couple different things, but that all-purpose food is great for bigger containers, especially. Smaller ones, we have a product we call Flower Power. It's a water-soluble. That's probably better, or if it's a lot of blooming stuff. Flower Power is obviously better for flowers. But main thing here, potting soil, and then they did. A lot of folks don't buy enough. So they're left half wanting, so their pots are usually, I've seen it too many times, just neighbors and friends, the pot's only half full. Now what, you ran out of money? Did you run out of soil? What happened? What's going on here? Fill it to about an inch from the top. Just enough to be able to water, then it looks fuller, so your plants come out of it looking like life is bursting from your containers. If it's subgrade too much, it's designer-esque. The designer in me says something's off with that. So it will help you out, okay? The other mistake is, like the new employees I hire, they overfill. So they overestimate. So now you got a slight now it's hard to water. So there's a fine line. So you'll get a feel for it. Anyway, usually I'll put the soil in and I'll be just shy, be 4 inches shy. I'll put my roots in there, my plants, then I'll take a shovel and my little trowel and I'll backfill around the roots that are already there. So I get the soil just within, I don't know, an inch or so. That's just school hard knocks and things that I do for my gardens. Might help you out with yours as well.
So question, what if you're growing just a vegetable plant that's
Yeah.
only gonna last a couple of months?
Yeah.
Do you still need to fill it all the way up, or?
You don't have to, although, so, okay, here's the artist in me, so I'm a gardener. It's beautiful spray painted tomato cage, like bright red, orange, blue, I've got yellow. Having a beautiful big plant in there, I use them as art pieces. You can, a beautiful vegetable can be right there at the front door showing off its beauty. Because it's an ornamental, it's got vegetables, it's got cucumbers, eggplants, they're just beautiful. So if it's subgrade, it's all of a sudden less artistic. It could grow, but why not take it all the way for an extra half a bag of soil? It's too easy to have all the above. Anyway,
It's going to grow better with.
it's going to grow better for sure, especially if you're reaching that high 90s, 200s, which you know we're going to get to. That's what brings the rain in. The heat is what draws the rain. So we need it to get that hot. And so it's going to be short-lived, but you have to endure 3 weeks of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's summer. The weatherman was right. It is hot. It's always that way. So to take that edge off for your plants for sure. Yeah. The more soil you have, that's a sponge. The more water holding capacity that soil has. The other one to watch too, because I just planted a couple butterfly bush, and the ground was right before the rain hit. My timing was perfect. But the ground was bone dry. I mean, it was powdery dry. Whatever you do, don't put a plant in a dry hole. Because what happens is when you got it all planted, just like I said, quarter mulch, food, water and root growth, but the ground around it is real dry and it will wick. It'll actually pull the water away from the root ball and it dries that root out like that. So in that case, I pre-hydrated my root while the hole was still dug. I actually filled it half full with water, not to water the plant, to get the side soil to hydrate so I'm less prone to suck the life out of the plant. That's a common problem for late spring, early summer plantings. Now that the rains have started, it's less of an issue. And I've seen a lot of new growth on those butterfly bush. You've only been in for a couple of weeks. All new flowers. You can tell they're actively growing. So as soon as that foliage starts growing, the roots mirror the new growth of the top growth. The roots mirror that right away. Just like that. Top growth, root growth, just like that. So great question. All right. So how to plant? Let me tell you why I'm wearing sequins and glow-in-the-dark shoes. So August 25th and 26th, I'm going to hand these out. In fact, did I pass the, yeah, good, perfect. I'm also going to give this. This is why I have sequins on. This thing is hot. You gals that have worn sequins, I've never done that before. Deep respect, because it's hot. So take one of those. This will explain what it is. Dancing for the Stars. So the Boys and Girls Club has a fundraiser. This is year 7 or season 7. So there's a major fundraisers. Boys and Girls Club. There's 2 Boys and Girls Clubs. This is an after-school program, summer program that I think every community should have. And so they do so much good for kid level stuff. And so we've been supporting them for years, and they asked me to dance. I've been saying no for 7 years. This year, Alex Heineman, he's our CEO of the 2 clubs. He goes, "You said no for 7 years, but not this year." So he called my wife and said, "Hey, Lisa, we want Ken to dance." And she said, "I don't know if he'll dance." I said, "Listen, you just get the entire team there, stage it, make sure Ken's there when I come in. I'll come in with a boom box and flowers playing disco, and I'll ask him in front of your entire team, and we'll see if he'll say no." And that's what he did. He tag teamed, and they said, back in April, they asked me to dance in front of my entire team. They go, "Ken, you've got an appointment here in the store." I go, "No, I don't. I would meet him in my office." No, you do. Come in. All right. And I walk in, and there they are, boombox, disco, flowers, nothing but blue aprons in the store. And said, "Now will you dance?" And so I'm dancing for the stars. Dancing not with the stars, dancing for the stars, because the stars are the kids. So anyway, it'll be at Yavapai College. Thank you very much. It'll be at Yavapai College, August 25th and 26th. It's 3 weeks to go. 3 weeks. So I'm practicing a lot. Please come. It will be at the main auditorium. That's the Jim and Linda Lee Performing Arts Center. That's the big one. 1,064 people it holds. That plays in my head a little bit. I like to dance with all of you, but not in front of all of you. So that's kind of intimidating. The way you win is there's 2 main awards. One is who raises the most money. So I'm in the lead. just crossed $58,000. My goal is 100, so we got that. I got 3 more weeks, kind of going. And when you buy a ticket to the event, you check out, they'll ask, oh, and who would you like to be credited with your tickets? So if you buy a ticket, please kind of just say, Ken and Carrie. So Carrie Hughes, she has danced all 7 seasons. She's a professional dancer out of Dewey. Her husband's the mayor of Dewey. They own a ranch. She's a realtor, does weddings and stuff. So she's a name out that side of town. She's a very, very good artist. And she's good with choreography. So what she's got in store for you is it'll be a spectacle. That's the only way I could say it. So in fact, I just finished the background video to that. Remind me and I'll send that. If you want, in fact, it's uploading to Google Drive right now. I'll let you see what the background video we're dancing in front of. It's a tribute to all the past dancers because COVID hit 2020, which is the middle group. They couldn't dance, obviously. We all thought we were going to die. And so they raised money, but they didn't dance. So I'm trying to bring all 7 years together and really highlight the COVID group as they took it in the chin that year. So anyway, I'll let you see that. Pitbull, Jennifer Lopez, dancing on the floor. If you're going to really dance beats, you'll get a feel for it. Anyway, that's where I'm dancing. I'll send you a copy, just to you. You folks online, I don't know, maybe, put your email in the address bar and I'll send it to you too. Anyway, with that, please buy a ticket, come. If you're looking at the stage, you kind of want to be on the left-hand side because my entourage, because there's an award for the best entourage, my group is going to be a ruckus on the left-hand side as you're looking at the front stage. Or for you theatrical folks, you made a band, choir folks, that would be stage left. The rest of us, it's on the left side. No, stage right, sorry. The rest of us, it's the left side. Sorry, my bad. With that, I'll just hang. If I could ask one favor in that regard, though. If you have a clubhouse, golf, fraternity, lodge, gathering of people that you know, a church, if you've got a board where you can hang up this poster, I would love it if you could help me get the word out to vote for Ken and Carrie. It would be huge. I've got one for you. If you're really going to hang it up, please take one. I would appreciate that. Other than that, you can watch it online too, so it's going to be live. It'll be interesting. I'll let you clap, and then I'll let you go. So thank you very much. What's next week's class going to be on? Do you remember?
It's on the board over there.
Never mind.
I
That's
don't know.
good. Yeah.
Evergreen.
Any other question? I'll hang as long as you want. If I didn't get to your questions, we'll just hang out and talk gardens.
Yeah.